my guest, Mike Wollert, to pound the table for someone this season. Mike, who you pounded the table for?
Well, if you know anything about me and have read anything, you'll see Cody Barton is the guy I am pounding the table for. Seattle linebacker. Seattle didn't do anything to address the linebacker position this offseason after Bobby Wagner got cut, and it looks like it's Jordan Brooks and Cody Barton. So appears to have a 3-down role, and as we like to say, volume equals opportunity.
I love it. Anyone playing IDP out there, you heard it from Mike Wollert. Go get you some Cody Barton. Now let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Most Accurate Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Niles, and I'm riding solo for a bonus all-IDP episode with my favorite IDP analyst, Mike Wollert, senior writer, IDP ranker over at 4for4.com. Thanks so much for joining me, Mike. How you doing this evening?
Brandon, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Mike, legit one of my favorite Twitter follows, one of the few I'd consider a must follow for IDP updates and just general enjoyment on Twitter. You can find him at Mike_Wollert. Mike, we're going to talk
You're making
today.
my head, you're already growing my head a little bit bigger than it really already needs to be. So, but I appreciate that.
It's true, buddy. It's true. Also, my friendly guy answers my litany of DMs that I send him throughout the season of which linebackers I should start for the week. We're going to talk IDP today. I want to start you out with a softball question. Some of the listeners may or may not be familiar with IDP, may not know how to incorporate IDP into their favorite leagues. How would you recommend listeners go out and add that IDP component to their favorite fantasy leagues?
Well, I think now is a really great time to get into it. 5-10 years ago, it was a little bit tougher. It was still a little bit niche and there wasn't a whole lot of content available, but now there is just so much available. Not just me, which is great, but
you're
anyway,
still the best though.
but there's so much information available. So and you know what, with IDP, it's not as difficult as it sounds. It's like, oh my God, I got to know all these guys. I got to know all these different cornerbacks. I got to know all these different schemes. I got to know what a zone defense is. I got to know what a two high safety shell is. Like, no, you don't really. It does. You don't need it. It's not that difficult. And really, once you incorporate IDP for that first year, just look at your scoring and who scores the highest, and kind of go from there. And then that's kind of your base. Maybe add a defensive end or a defensive line, a linebacker, and a defensive back. Couple of flex spots. I think it's enough of a dip in the toes in the IDP waters to get started. There's plenty of examples of scoring systems that you can kind of look and see what you feel comfortable with and tinker and just kind of see what happens. And the best part is kind of gives you skin in the game on both ends of the game and both sides of the ball. Got your offense and your defense, and you get to root for Jonathan Taylor and you get to root for Darius Leonard. So how cool is that? So it's still a really good time to get into it. And there's just so many people. It's a great community, a lot of people available and willing to help.
I love it. You're right. There are a tremendous amount of people that are excited about IDP, not just there to give you information, but like eager to talk about it because it's been this niche thing for so long. And now it is getting more prominent. And you're right. There's nothing more exciting than watching your young linebacker wear the dot on Sunday and giving you something else to watch on the other side of the ball. I love it. If you want to play some regular best ball fantasy football right now, you can still get in on some underdog action. We have a promo. If you deposit $10 in a new underdog account, get a deposit bonus match plus a 4for4 Pro or DFS subscription. Head over to 4for4.com/underdog for details. Also, another place to check out, 4for4.com. We've got the IDP Fantasy Football Primer for 2022. Mike put that out there. It's everything IDP. It's a great article. It's a great resource to help you understand exactly how to incorporate IDP into your league, what the scoring means, what the positions are. Mike, thank you for doing that. It's like a great little how-to for people.
Yeah, but the great thing is I think it's a good resource for people who are just getting into it and for advanced, because you know what, sometimes we all need to get back to basics. I still need to refer to scoring systems whenever I get back into my platforms, and I need to figure things out. What are the scoring? How's the scoring? How's it tailored? What are the players that are going to be best for this system? So just sometimes getting back to basics is an important thing. So, know the scoring, know your roster requirements, and then kind of go from there from your roster construction. So, you'll see things, or, you see tackle heavy, or you'll see balance, tackle heavy or big play formats. Your tackle heavy, you're going to get a few more points for tackles, solo tackles. Big plays are your sacks, your interceptions, your forced fumbles. Some sites are now incorporating quarterback hits. So you also have to make sure that, you're targeting guys that are getting the quarterback hits, and some of them are even doing tackles for losses. Not saying that's good or bad, but again, those stats are now some of those advanced stats are now being incorporated into some platforms. So if you want high scoring, incorporate all that and just jack up all the points that you want. I remember a few years ago, I got a question. Hey, this guy scored 95 points. I'm like, okay, you got to tell me what do you mean 95? It's like, yeah, my scores are like 645 to like 580. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, they like the high scoring in some of these systems. So yeah, just take a look at the primer. Gives you kind of a good general idea, kind of your Cliff's Notes version, how to get IDP set up.
We're in such a golden age for stat collection in general. Like the QB hit idea is fantastic. It really kind of rewards those excellent pass rushers who may not get all the sacks.
We're just
but
a
are still
little almost there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great. I love that. I haven't been in one of those leagues yet. I'm excited about it. My favorite leagues, it's always interesting when you've got like a defensive tackle is worth more than a linebacker tackle, or a cornerback tackle is worth more than a safety tackle, or anything along those lines. So those are fun.
If you're in a league for a few years, like, oh my God, linebackers are just outscoring everybody. Adjust it. A defensive tackle isn't really known for getting a lot of sacks, so maybe jack up the sacks and maybe get put up the tackles a little bit more. For cornerbacks, maybe increase their pass, their defended passes, because that's what they're known for. Maybe increase the interceptions a little bit, but like you said, even the tackles. So tinker around with the scoring, make it a little bit equal if your linebackers are just totally dominating the scoring.
Let's talk about some linebackers right now, because linebackers do dominate the scoring, as you mentioned. I want to talk about some rumors and news out there. We've got Darius, formerly known as Darius, now Shaquille Leonard, out there. I'm wondering, he seems to be nicked up, but it's unclear what's going on or if he's going to miss time. What's your take on Shaquille Leonard, kind of as a prospect going into this season? And then if he misses time, who's the most to benefit? Who should we be targeting?
So with Darius Leonard, Shaquille Leonard, which is funny, if his name has changed in any of your platforms, take advantage of it, because maybe someone's going to be like, who the heck is this Shaquille Leonard? Draft him. He's like, okay, I got my LB1, but I think he's dealing with a bad back, and I don't like back injuries and I don't like neck injuries, because you've never heard people say, I've recovered from a back, or my back has gotten better. Sometimes it just progressively can get a little bit worse as time goes on, and as football goes on. Nobody gets healthier throughout the season. Right now is when you're at your healthiest. So the back injury is a little bit concerning. I've dropped him actually in my rankings a little bit, because they have said they don't really have a timetable. They said, yes, he could play this season. We just don't know when. I don't know if that's coach speak, but when coaches say things like that, especially of a player of that caliber, where you say he could miss some time, that sets up a little bit, that sets some red flags. So I've actually dropped him down, I think, outside of my top 10. I think I have him as my LB16, so more of a LB2 if he does miss some time. But in terms of potentially who could replace him, in watching the preseason game, and I know it's preseason week 1, and we're trying not to overreact, but it was Zaire Alexander and not EJ Speed that actually filled in for Darius Leonard, and actually or the dot and call the plays. So if Darius Leonard is going to miss some time, Zaire Alexander is probably going to be your late round target, or even a waiver wire pickup to maybe play for a few weeks until Leonard gets back.
Linebackers are so, and Ricky wants to say pass deflection helps the cornerbacks, which I agree. It's great. Adding that as a statistic is excellent. And also mentioned Zaire Franklin. I wanted to ask about, one thing that's interesting about baseball is we talk about replacement players, right? And where it's one of the rare instances where like wins above replacement is a very, very sticky stat, because if you replace your third baseman in the lineup, they're really getting the same hits. There's no like more opportunity. Nothing shifts to the bigger stars, right? Is linebacker kind of like that too, or should we also be looking at some of the more established outside backers in that defense, like Bobby Okereke?
Well, Bobby Okereke is already going to be drafted, so you're not even going to have a chance to draft him. But yes, you would draft him if he's available. I mean, that's your first target right there. But with Okereke, you're probably drafting him at value or at his limit or at his ceiling.
Sure.
So the value is going to be with someone like Alexander, whose volume and whose opportunity is going to increase. With Okereke, like I said, he's already been established. He's going to get those snaps, so he's going to get that volume already. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's kind of why I like Cody Barton a little bit more than Jordan Brooks, because Jordan Brooks is already being drafted among one of probably the top 1, 2, or 3 linebackers, and he's he's being drafted right there at his ADP. So that's why I like Barton. Increased volume, increased opportunity, and you're getting him at an insane value. I think he's being drafted as like the 40th linebacker off the board. So you're getting basically a full down linebacker almost essentially for free in those later rounds.
Excellent. Double down on value. I'm all about that. Let's shift to Roquan Smith, another big name linebacker who's been making the headlines right now. There's some rumors that he's asking for a trade. I don't know if the Bears will actually trade him, but if they do, who benefits in Chicago? Who should we kind of be slowly adding to the back ends of our rosters just in case that happens?
Well, right now I've moved up Nicholas Morrow. I have him up as I believe my LB24. So he was actually moving up regardless, because he was already pinpointed as the guy that was going to call the plays. It's been Roquan Smith for the last several years. But Nicholas Morrow was tabbed to wear the dot even when Roquan Smith was going to be available. So for me, it's Nicholas Morrow. For one of those late round targets, you might want to look at Matt Adams. I think he got the majority of those first team snaps in the preseason. But I know we're going to be talking about rookies, but Jack Sanborn jumped off the radar, had a huge game, was disruptive, caused some big plays. So don't be surprised to see him get quite a bit of snap volume heading into the preseason, because I think they're going to want to look at him, because right now, just behind Roquan and Morrow, there's really just a bunch of guys. So Sanborn might get an opportunity. So I think Matt Adams and Jack Sanborn are probably 2 guys you're going to want to kind of have in your back pocket for those later rounds in your draft.
Excellent. So this is what I love talking to you, Mike, except I always have to stop myself from pausing because I have like 5 dynasty IDP leagues, and I always want to write these names down and go pick them up immediately after I talk to you. If Roquan gets traded, where's a good spot for him? Where would you like to see him land?
For me, I don't mind a spot in LA with the Chargers. I mean, they've got a few guys. They got Drew Tranquil, but Kenneth Murray has kind of fallen off. He's kind of lost some of that luster. So there's not really a whole lot of spots there that he's really going to impact, the current situation of linebackers. I don't mind Dallas. They got Leighton Vander Esch, who's been a little bit of who's been dealing with injuries. And Buffalo is another one. Tremaine Edmonds is okay. He hasn't really done a whole lot and has just kind of been a guy. IDP wise, he's been fine. And even Matt Milano, who's gotten a good volume of snaps, but is also from an IDP standpoint, he's been an okay player. So those are some spots. In terms of some spots where I don't want to see him, he'd probably muddle up some of the situations in Philadelphia. I think he'd kind of muddle some of the situations up in Indianapolis. And for selfish reasons, I do not want to see him in Seattle. Just because I love Cody Barton. I don't.
You got all the
Cody Barton. I got all the Cody Barton. So if he lands in Seattle, that would definitely be a problem for all of my Cody Barton shares.
Yeah, I got a lot of Kazir White, so if he lands up in Philly, I'm going to be
Yeah.
really sad. It's going to
Yeah, TJ Edwards, Kazir White. Yeah, it's
Yep.
and even to Kobe Dean, who's the up and comer. So that would be a little bit of tough because they trade Roquan, exactly they're going to want to extend him. So
Yep.
there's a 3 or 4 year contract that could be coming up, and they're going to probably pay him a lot of money. So there goes the kibosh on everything there.
Yeah, you talk about Nakobe Dean. Let's that's a great transition opportunity. Let's talk about those rookie linebackers who might be on our radar right now. You
Jen
mentioned
Eakin's
Jack
favorite
Sanborn.
linebacker, right?
Absolutely, Jen Akins. Jen Akins. Not only that, we got another one, which let's start with the other Georgia linebacker right now. Let's talk Quay Walker. The Green Bay Packers. I believe he was the first linebacker off the board in the draft this year. What do we think about him in Green Bay, and what kind of opportunity does he have as a fantasy asset in IDP leagues?
I think with Walker, I think he's in a very interesting situation with Green Bay. Devondre Campbell did not play in week 1, but what was really interesting is that he actually did call the plays. So it's notable to me that a rookie has been entrusted to call the defensive plays. So that was very interesting to see him calling the plays, because they do have a veteran there in Chris Barnes, but it was the rookie Quay Walker who got the dot. Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell are very similar linebackers, almost a very similar archetype. They both do things very well. They're very good in coverage. They're both very instinctive. So I think for me, I could definitely see the Packers running more 2 linebacker sets with both Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker. They can drop Devondre Campbell in coverage if they wanted to, and they can send Quay Walker on a blitz. Both of them are very solid against the run. So you've got 2 guys that are playing behind guys like Kenny Clark and Devonta White, who are going to clog up the offensive line and make holes. That's going to allow Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker to make some plays. So I definitely am very optimistic about Quay Walker's situation.
Excellent. I like that Packers team defense too. I know we're talking IDP right now, but those additions that they made, I think they're going to get pressure on the quarterback and create turnovers.
For sure.
That usually creates good things. Let's talk about that other early drafted linebacker, Devin Lloyd. What do you think about him? He's kind of a thumper, right?
Yeah, again, another one of those guys that can kind of do everything. He is a prototypical 3-down back. Jacksonville spent a first-round pick, so he already has the draft capital. So I can kind of already foresee him as a 3-down guy playing opposite their big free agent acquisition, Fasade Aluokun. I like Devin Lloyd, but it really, really put the kibosh on Chad Muma for me, because I had Chad Muma as my number 1 linebacker for rookie drafts, and then he also goes to Jacksonville. So it'll be interesting to see how Jacksonville deploys their defense. It's like, are they going to go more 3 linebackers, or are they just going to go 2 linebacker sets? So that kind of did put the kibosh a little bit on Muma's redraft value, at least for this year. Made a few nice tackles in that preseason opener against Cleveland. Had a really nice play where he just kind of weaved through and made a nice open field tackle. So, but yeah, I think Devin Lloyd is also probably going to be one of your 3-down linebackers in Jacksonville.
Excellent. Yeah, beat writers love Muma. It's interesting. Jacksonville 2 years ago, we were talking about Joe Schobert and Miles Jack and how great they were. That was just 2 years ago.
Oh, I know. It's how quickly the NFL moves, right?
It's just crazy. Let's talk about a few more of the rookies. I'm going to let you tell me, because those are really the guys I know about, those highly drafted ones. But we know from years past that those day 2 and day 3 linebackers can earn snaps as rookies and put up big tackle numbers.
Yep, I mean, you've got Nakobe Dean, who fell in the draft, who was a top 10 pick, but he made a pretty big splash in the preseason. Channing Tindall got a pretty high grade from Pro Football Focus for his time this week. Pretty solid in coverage, which I think what Miami really needs. And that's one thing that linebackers tend to struggle with when they make that transition to the NFL is coverage. So when you have someone who's actually able to make plays and not look lost in coverage, I think that's going to be able to up their playing time. I mentioned Jack Sanborn in Chicago. For Dynasty, Darian Beavers. He got the dot for Blake Martinez, and I think he's the one that's kind of being groomed to take over that middle linebacker spot with the Giants. And then Leo Chanel, which I actually liked coming into the draft. His coverage was a little bit shaky, but he actually had a pretty solid game, pretty good in coverage. Unfortunately, he's in that mess with Kansas City, so not quite sure what to make of his playing time. So he could play into some more snaps, could run some more 3 linebacker packages, but with the way Steve Spagnuolo runs his defense, I'm not even going to begin to speculate on what's going to happen there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we like the Chiefs linebackers finally? Because I like them every year, and it's a crapshoot. It drives me crazy. I love the guys they got there. What do we do with that mess, Mike?
I'm you know what? It's that Michael Scott office gift. Well, you know what? Prepare. I'm going to get hurt again. I still like Nick Bolton. I think he's going to get the majority. I think he's probably going to end up leading the Chiefs linebackers and snaps because he's going to call the plays. But that really with Kansas City doesn't mean anything. Anthony Hitchens was the main play caller. I think he only played 65% of the snaps last year, but I think they really like Bolton's overall game. He can do so much. He's very versatile. He can get to the passer, stop the run. I think he was actually one of the only players that was actually able to take down Derrick Henry on first contact. So when you're able to take down Derrick Henry, I think you're doing something right. And Willie Gay has just shown out in training camp. The first couple of plays with Kansas City, Willie Gay and Nick Bolton were the ones out there for those first couple of plays. He was getting the third down, so I'm crossing my fingers that Willie Gay and Nick Bolton are at least full-time guys that are going to play 75, 80, 85% of the snaps. If it doesn't happen, then that's just on me, and it's not learning from history and how Steve Spagnuolo runs his defense, but I can't quit the Kansas City linebackers.
I have a lot of Nick Bolton and a little bit of Willie Gay, so I'm with you completely. I'm hoping that it works out. But boy, yeah, they'll sign Anthony Hitchens again somehow, and he'll come out and wear the dot. But PK Ripper shares your optimism about Darian Beavers.
Yep.
I'm now writing his name down as well. I've got a couple linebackers to go add in my dynasty leagues. Let's talk a little bit. Let's shift to the Panthers, because the Panthers, they brought in Corey Littleton, which is a very interesting addition to me, because the Panthers haven't really had a middle linebacker since Luke Kuechly retired. They've been looking for that guy they can trust, and Corey Littleton was an all-pro caliber player with the Rams, and then nothing with the Raiders for 2 years. So do you think he wins that job? And do you think that we can kind of see a little bit more of that Ram style Littleton, or do you think the ship has sailed?
I think with Littleton, honestly, I think I'm not really buying into it. They brought in Littleton. They also brought in Damian Wilson from Jacksonville. Littleton just, something has tailed off. And sometimes when we see tackles or we see these high tackle numbers, we automatically think he's a good player. And just sometimes that isn't the case. And he was covered by, some of his warts were covered by the fact that he played behind Aaron Donald. So that kind of helps. Exactly. So didn't play very well with Vegas. Had missed tackles were a problem. I don't think he's going to get that change of scenery. Like I said, with Damian Wilson, Carolina's liked what they've seen from Frankie Louvu. He actually played only one snap week one, made a really nice tackle for a loss, and the Panthers are like, all right, you're good. Get off. You're good. As of right now, Shaq Thompson is really the only one that I trust. He's the main 3-down guy calling the plays, but I'm probably not putting much stock into Corey Littleton or Damian Wilson. I'd probably keep Frankie Louvu probably in the back of your mind as potentially a waiver wire pickup, or if you're in a deeper IDP league where you're 35, 40 rounds and you can draft 5, 6, 7 linebackers, maybe hit toward the tail end is kind of one of those late round lottery tickets.
PK Ripper agrees with Frankie Louvu. He says he looks nasty, which I like that. I like a nasty linebacker. That always
gotta love nasty linebackers.
Let's talk about the Rams, since we talked Corey Littleton. He used to be a Ram. They bring in Bobby Wagner, who's been a longtime favorite IDP target, just about as steady as you get over there in Seattle. Can he be as lucrative with the Rams in the role that he has there? Should we have just as much faith in Wagner as we always have?
I am. I mean, if you look at my rankings, I believe I have him as the LB 4 or 5. He was immediately installed as the play caller. And again, he gets the benefit of playing behind Aaron Donald. So you've got both Bobby Wagner and Aaron Donald. Got a few good, you got Leonard Floyd there as a pass rusher. So when you're able to bring in that veteran presence, that's always big. So for me, Bobby Wagner in redraft, you just continue to draft him and enjoy those 130, 140 tackles. I think he's going to be really, if the Rams continue to run those one linebacker sets, I know he's not coming off the field. I do like Ernest Jones. I've been reading some of those, some of the write-ups on those two. And, you got those intangible write-ups saying Ernest Jones is attached at Bobby Wagner's hip. So he's learning a lot and really asking him questions and really trying to learn. So when you got those narratives surrounding and hoping, all right, are they going to run run more two linebacker sets? Because now that they have two capable linebackers of actually playing, but we'll see. On those first 9 snaps, defensive snaps for the Rams, they ran, I believe, 5 2 linebacker sets and 4 1 linebacker sets. So we'll kind of see, hopefully, if Ernest Jones could potentially get 70% of the snaps. I mean, that can definitely make him useful in some IDP leagues as maybe an LB4. I've got him, I think, at around the 700, 750 snap mark. But again, he could be one of those kind of those late round breakouts that I like Ernest Jones. I like where he came from. I like his makeup. So I'm really hoping he sticks and is able to get on the field.
Super athletic kid. I'm rooting for him too. I always like to see those training camp things about like veterans taking a younger player under the wing. I don't know. It's always makes me happy to see that type of stuff.
It means absolutely nothing, but I like
to
hear it. You like to hear it. You're like, okay, good. These guys are actually seeing. These are veterans I can learn from. I'm just going to learn and sponge off of him.
Yeah. My favorite one this is in the NBA, but every year they say like a point guard that doesn't play defense. So it's like, well, he called Gary Payton and Gary Payton was telling him about how to become a better defender. I always love that. I think it was one of the big centers. I think it's Dikembe Mutombo. They're like with the defensive centers to be like, oh, he was working out with Dikembe Mutombo. So the defense is going to be better this year.
Or someone can't shoot free throws. So here comes Mark Price.
Yeah, right. Let's stick NFC West. The Cardinals linebackers are super interesting to me. Jordan Hicks is no longer there to muddy up the situation. We've got 2 very highly drafted, very talented linebackers there. What do you make of that situation? Which one should we be targeting, or both, or neither?
Well, with Arizona, they've drafted 2 off-ball linebackers in the first round and don't know how to use them or what to do with them. Zaven Collins was a first-round pick last year. General manager says, yep, he's our middle linebacker. He's our play caller. Then here comes Jordan Hicks, totally puts the whole kibosh on that. And then the year before, when Isaiah Simmons was drafted in the first round, hardly played. So it took him to his second year to get the significant playing time, or that full-time playing time. Right now, I've been reading that Isaiah Simmons is going to be playing more of this star role. So he's going to be playing all over, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing for a linebacker. It's going to limit his tackle floor and I think his efficiency. If you're playing him at multiple positions, you don't have any positions, is how I look at it. I want my linebacker playing linebacker. If he's going to play slot on a few snaps, that's fine, but I want my linebackers playing linebacker. And just tonight there was and I know it's an unofficial depth chart, but he was listed as the 3rd inside linebacker behind, if I can just pull it up, Ezekiel Turner and Ben Neiman. So take that with a grain of salt, because Jalen Thompson, who was one of the top producing safeties last year, is also listed as a 3rd safety. So,
okay.
But take it with a grain of salt. But again, I don't like that he's being played all over. I know that's kind of what he did in college. That's what made it successful. But I think in the NFL, I want my linebackers playing linebacker. But if they're playing all over, that's just going to lower his potential tackle efficiency. So right now, I'd probably target Zaven Collins. He's been getting tucked up a little bit. So for me, it's Zaven Collins at this point over Isaiah Simmons.
Excellent. That makes sense to me. I'm hoping he has that second year leap. This isn't on the show sheet, but because I didn't really see this until Twitter, and we're talking about second year linebackers. Jamin Davis, didn't hear anything positive about him until suddenly the last couple days.
Yep.
Beat writers seem to think he's kind of turned a page and doing well. We know he's probably not going to wear the dot in that defense. It doesn't seem like he's got that role. Should we be encouraged by him second year, or should we still be super concerned after a rough first season?
Yeah, you know what? And I'm guilty of it too. A lot of us, if someone doesn't perform in their rookie year, it goes back to that Toy Story meme where Andy is throwing away Woody. You're like, bye, Woody. I don't, bye.
Yeah.
And it's like, these guys are only rookies. So, give him a little bit of chance to develop. I know he's a first round pick, but not a whole lot of talent has come out of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. So, had a good showing in Kentucky, but yeah, first round pick. I think he only ended up playing 40 or 50% of the snaps. And you're right, he's not going to call the plays. That's Cole Holcomb's job right now. But I think this coaching staff is going to give him a chance to develop. And if he continues to stack the days like he had today, and if he continues to stack those days together and play well, he could turn into a full-time linebacker potentially in his second year. So if I have him in Dynasty, I'm not holding. I may even buy, because you know what? It's not going to cost you much. What's it going to cost you? 5th round, 6th round pick potentially at this point. Might be on your waiver wire. So, if you have someone that's just you don't need anymore, definitely potentially worth a pickup.
Excellent. That gives me hope. I've got a little bit. I've dabbled in shares of Jamin Davis, so I've got a little bit of. I got 2 more linebacker situations I want to talk about. Then we'll get to another position group.
Everybody loves linebackers, so I'm sure nobody cares. I mean, when I look at my clicks and everything, the linebackers outrank all of my other positions like 5-1. So I'm sure everybody likes the linebackers.
It's the cream of the crop. And the next segment that we're going to talk about will kind of help some of the value gap, I think, but we'll get to that. I do want 2 more situations. Denver, who's been looking for a middle linebacker for as long as I can remember, it seems like. They bring in Joe Schobert, who, we could talk about how good Joe Schobert is, but he's been someone everywhere he's been, he's racked up tackles. Are you bullish on his prospects in Denver?
You know what? It's one of those things. As soon as I saw him sign in Denver, I was going to just instantly react. I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I don't know. He's going to play. It seems like he's going to play right away. Jonas Griffith and Josie Jewell were the 2 inside linebackers, but Jonas Griffith, I believe he dislocated an elbow, has a bad elbow injury. So he's probably going to be, they are saying he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So today, Schobert sounded like he's slotting right next to Josie Jewell as the guy that's going to play the full-time role. So there's a couple of other guys, you got also Alex Singleton, who's also going to be in there. You also have Justin Sternett, who's a guy. So the 4 to 6 week timetable for Jonas Griffith probably puts him on track to return around week 2, week 3. So for me, for weeks 1 and 2, Joe Schobert will probably have some value after that. If I can, I'm selling, but I don't think he's going to automatically overtake Jonas Griffith, because they really liked Griffith's development this year and in camp. I think Josie Jewell is going to still continue to call the plays and wear the dot. They liked him. He's actually graded pretty highly at last year until he got hurt. So and
super
he's
athletic.
So he's an athletic guy, graded high, can produce. So for right now, in deeper leagues, pick him up if you need to. But past week 2 or past week 3, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be I think it's going to be a rotation. And I'm not factoring in, or I'm not putting the guarantee or the fact that he's going to be a 3-down linebacker or play 80%, 85% of the snaps. So I think it's still going to be Jonas Griffith and Josie Jewell once he gets back. Now, how many snaps is Jonas Griffith going to play? I don't know. I guess that depends on how quickly he is to recover. But for me, I'm not penciling Joe Schobert for any type of full-time role, potentially past week 2 or 3.
How dare you be measured on a fantasy football podcast, Mike? How dare you?
I know, right? I'm not coming out with the hot takes. I just come out. Yeah, Joe Schobert's going to wear the dot. He's going to wear 100% of the snaps. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. PK Ripper wants to talk about the Jets. That wasn't the team that I wanted to go to, so let's slide the Jets in here. Shame on me for not including them already. CJ and Quan for the Jets. Thoughts on that tandem?
It's a good veteran tandem. I didn't really think when Quan went, I honestly, I didn't think he would factor him, but apparently he signed with the intention of, hey, I want to earn some snaps. And you know what? Quincy Williams had the benefit of injuries last year, so they really had to play him. And looking at his grades, he didn't grade out very well. So I think CJ Mosley and Quan Alexander can be a pretty good tandem. He's had a pretty good camp already. He's shown out. He's played the majority with the first team this past week, but that was without CJ Mosley. I'm probably going to end up fading Quincy Williams. I don't have much Quincy Williams. I will probably continue not to draft him, and I'll just take the late round lottery ticket with Quan Alexander, and I think he can outplay Quincy Williams, to be honest. So that's kind of the way I'm seeing things. He seems like I think, if I'm not mistaken, when he was in San Francisco, Robert Saleh was there with him, so there's some familiarity, if I'm not mistaken. So
correct. Yep.
Quan Alexander can play. He's pretty good in coverage, pretty good against the run. So I think he's going to have that every opportunity to play. If I'm a Quincy Williams owner, I might be a little scared. I'm going to hold and just kind of see what happens. But just from my view, Quan got signed to play and to compete. So that's what's going to happen.
Nice. Another team where the linebackers think benefit from some strong supporting cast members around them that got better in the offseason, which is fun to see. Let's go one more team. Let's go to your beloved Cleveland Browns, Mike. That's another team kind of been a mess from a fantasy linebacker perspective for several years now, since Schobert left, really. And just curious if we're going to get a guy this year that we can bank on from an IDP fantasy perspective.
For right now, it's probably going to be Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So I think he's going to I think he could end up leading the Browns in snaps at the linebacker position. I do like Jacob Phillips. They're giving him a chance to really earn that middle linebacker role. He's been hurt for the most part since his rookie year. But he's getting every opportunity to play into that role with Anthony Walker out. I know Walker was sidelined with the first couple of weeks. But Jacob Phillips and wearing the dot, calling the plays. I think he had a pretty rough game against Jacksonville. Had kind of a little bit of a issue with stopping the run, getting some gaps, but he's getting those opportunities. So as of right now, I think Owusu-Koramoah is going to lead the team in snaps. I think Jacob Phillips, if he performs and stays healthy, could be around that 850 snap mark. I think he would rotate with Anthony Walker for those middle linebacker duties. So if Phillips is going to come off, it'll be Walker. But right now, I do have those two. And like I said, I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is probably going to be your top target in Cleveland.
I love JOK. He's the one you're paying for, though, right? Does he cost a pretty penny, or is he sliding?
I don't know if he costs a pretty penny. I think he's being drafted among the top 20. So which I think is fair. But I don't think you're paying an absurdly high cost for him at this point.
Okay. Let's shift. For a long time now, fantasy football, IDP, the gap, I think the problem with it has been guys like Khalil Mack who get a linebacker designation. They don't rack up tackles, and then they lose value in these leagues. So I think last year was the first time I saw true position come into play. Can you describe a little bit about what true position is, how to use it, if it's good, do you like it, all that stuff?
For me, I kind of like the true position. What it's doing is it is putting players where kind of they're supposed to be. So you've got your defensive tackles or your interior defensive linemen. But what it does is it takes those 3-4 edge rushers and puts them as defensive ends, defensive linemen, because there really is no significant difference between a defensive end in a 4-3 and an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Okay, so a 4-3 defensive end has more of a hand in the dirt stance, while a 3-4 edge rusher is just standing up, but he's standing on the edge alongside the defensive end. So there's really no distinct difference really between those two differences. And it makes those linebackers true off-ball linebackers. So you've got your normal linebackers, you're like your Luke Kuechly's in the past, but your Roquan Smiths, your Darius Leonards. But what it does, it takes your guys like TJ Watt, Shaq Barrett, takes them out of the linebacker pool, puts them into that defensive end, defensive line pool. And so it's kind of creating a little bit more of a shallow linebacker pool, but those are your true off-ball linebackers. But it widens it deepens that defensive line edge pool. And it makes those players more value. TJ Watt is a fantastic football player. There's absolutely no doubt. But he's devalued if he's a linebacker, because he's going to get sacks. He's going to get some of those big plays, but his tackle rate is low. He's not doesn't get those tackle, doesn't have that tackle efficiency, doesn't rack up the tackles, makes guys like Khalil Mack more valuable. So those edge rushers more valuable. So that's kind of why I like it, because those guys should have value. They're good football players. And then it also takes out the DBs and it makes your cornerbacks, and then you have your separate safeties. So that's the way I look at true position. A lot of leagues, though, like Sleeper, they're designating players with two positions. So you got your DLLB, like, which is fine, which is great. In my fantasy league, I know TJ Watt is a linebacker, but you do have your custom settings to where you can make all of these guys defensive ends. I know Gary Davenport at IDP Sharks, he's been a big advocate for the true position on draft my fantasy league, but he says can take anywhere between half an hour to an hour to designate all those players as defensive ends. So I think it's well worth it. And I know one of our guys over at DLF, he goes by Sticky on Twitter at Adam Zickus, Adam TZ. He has a true position tool. If you find it, if you search true position tool on Twitter, you'll be able to find it. But he's got a true position tool that helps kind of clear up everything. So, and Adam, I know if you're listening, I know you're. It's Adam TZ at Adam TZ, Sticky Z Dynasty FF, but at Adam TZ on Twitter. He has a true position tool that kind of helps with the differentiation.
Excellent. I'm in on it. For those dynasty leaguers, I do recommend waiting a year to implement it, just because decisions are usually made on the draft and whatnot. So, but it's a great thing. It's where I think I'm going to move all of our leagues toward. I think I'm going to kind of head it toward true position for that reason. TJ Watt should be valuable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Let's talk a couple of the other positions. Not too terribly long, but for a little bit, just to hit on them. Defensive backs. When you're doing an IDP draft, when do you start targeting defensive backs? Considering that there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and it's a very lot of variance within the defensive back position. I think it still continues to be whoever finishes in the top 10. It doesn't happen the following year. Always defensive backs always emerge on the waiver wire on a weekly basis. So for me, kind of the redheaded stepchild of IDP, they're usually the last position that I target. With of all the positions, you're going to see guys like Derwin James go in the 7th and 8th round as probably the first DB off the board, which is fine. He's a great player, but I'm just not gonna spend a 7th or 8th round pick on a defensive back when I can get a lot of players of similar that can produce similar numbers later on. So that's kind of how I attack it. I usually wait mid-late rounds before I'm looking at my first one.
Excellent. Yeah, it's hard to put a lot of draft capital into it, especially when defensive ends are at such a premium, which we'll get to that. It's hard, but I've been watching you tweet a lot, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell me about Nick Cross, because I feel like every couple hours Nick Cross comes along my timeline on Twitter. I'm a little new to him. Usually you're involved in some way, Mike, so I'd like to hear a little bit about Nick Cross.
Yeah, Nick Cross, rookie safety. If I'm not mistaken, came out of Maryland, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to shoot off the hip, but rookie safety, landed in Indy. I didn't pay much attention to him because they had Kari Willis at the time, who was slated to be the starting strong safety. Well, he retired. He answered a higher calling, which fantastic for him. Hey, whatever you need to pursue, that's fantastic. So Nick Cross all of a sudden became a viable option. Gus Bradley really likes to utilize a big hitting box safety. Nick Cross kind of checked those boxes in college, and I think he's slated to kind of play that role. So, he had 3 tackles in his first game. Appears to be playing near the line of scrimmage, probably well more than 60 to 70% of his total snaps were coming up in the line of scrimmage, whether in the box or as a slot corner on the slot. So if he's going to get those line of scrimmage, those box snaps, that's what we want from our safety. He's going to be in position to make plays. And I really like Gus Bradley's scheme for those types of safeties.
I definitely had some Kari Willis, and it was a
I did too.
spot.
I had him ranked as my DB4. He was my sleeper pick for a DB1 because of the system, and he retires.
Yeah, lucrative option for us last year. I'm excited. You got me all excited about Nick Ross. I'm watching him in preseason and things of that sort. Any other rookie DBs? There were a bunch of really talented safeties came into the draft this year. Any other rookie DBs that you're specifically interested in that you like?
Yeah, one with Jaquan Brisker from Chicago made a huge impact in KC. I think he had a sequence of plays where he just like stopped everything and caused, I think, a 3-and-out just on his own. I think he had 4 tackles, 3 solos. Yeah, 4 tackles, 3 solos. Played 25 snaps. 76 of those snaps on the line of scrimmage, box in the slot. So I liked him, and one other one that I didn't write down, but Jalen Petrie from Houston also had a really solid game. Also looks to be kind of playing that IDP friendly box role. And Houston's linebackers, who knows who's going to be playing? It's just kind of a bunch of guys. So if Petrie is going to be playing near the box, up near the line of scrimmage, I think he's going to have a chance to make some plays.
Excellent. I didn't put this on the show sheet, but I should have. Kyle Hamilton, that's the guy I think most people will ask about rookie-wise, the Baltimore highly drafted Notre Dame guy. What do you think of him?
They drafted him as the 14th pick, so I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play a little bit all over. I don't think he's going to be playing strictly in the box, so I think you're going to see him playing deep. He's got range, so there, if you saw him at Notre Dame, he has really good range. He has really good closing speed. I think he fell because of his 40, but if you watched him in any way on film, it's that I don't know how that didn't translate. Had a really good play against the Titans, showing off that range. He just needs to clean up some misses. I think he had only 1 tackle, but like 3 misses. So he just needs to kind of get back to the fundamentals. But I think he's just going to be one of those guys that's going to kind of play all over. If Baltimore does deploy 3 safeties, they're going to have Marcus Williams. I think Chuck Clark is going to kind of play up on the line or near the line. I think he's going to continue to call the plays, but Kyle Hamilton could kind of be playing a little bit of everywhere.
That's one thing that's important to remember with IDP too. Those safeties, those rangy coverage guys don't always score big. Earl Thomas was never like a big time IDP scoring defensive back. Always kind of good to note. And then quickly, Trevon Diggs gets a lot of notice because of the interceptions that he puts out. Obviously, we do want to target him in cornerback specific leagues. That's obvious. But most leagues are just defensive backs and don't call out safeties and corners separately. Should we be targeting someone like Trevon Diggs in DB leagues, or is it a concern?
No, I'm not. In DB general, I'm avoiding. I don't, if you do you're banking on another 11, 12 interception season, and it's just, I don't see it happening. And even in cornerback leagues, I'm not really, if I miss out on him in a cornerback league, I'm not crying about it. So,
it's another one, like waivers week 3, you're going to be able to grab a great corner.
Exactly. So with Diggs, we've all seen Twitter bust on him. I mean, he gets beat, but he makes, he's
a gambler.
Gets beat. He's a gambler. So not someone I'm really actively targeting for a repeat.
I call it the Terrell Buckley All-Stars. I don't know if I'm too old and that's the only reason why, but the big plays and the big whiffs.
Yep.
In those quarterback only leagues, I would ask you. So I always try to look for slot corners. That's kind of what I do, because I feel like they do a little more run support and they get targeted a little bit more. Is that a good strategy for cornerback only leagues?
You know what? With cornerback only, I'm just identifying the guys that are getting targeted. So I know there's on Pro Football Reference. I know they're starting to track target data. So that's really just what I'm targeting. I'm targeting the guys who are playing 3 downs or playing the full-time role. It all comes back to snaps and then who's getting those targets. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's pretty simple for me. If they've got a good matchup, if they're getting snaps, they're getting targeted. That's what I'm looking at.
Excellent. Makes sense. All right, let's shift to the defensive line. This is where I see the most premium picks go. I see a lot of people spend pretty high draft capital on defensive ends and big sack eaters, and even like Aaron Donald to go real early. How high of a priority should they be when you're going into your IDP draft?
I think it really depends on your scoring. I'm gonna fall back to your scoring system. For me, even with maybe even a sack heavy. With even a sack heavy scoring, I'll probably look at the 7th or 8th round. And if Myles Garrett goes in the 4th or the 5th, I'm not going to cry missing him, because that just means I can get another solid running back or another solid wide receiver. Okay. And I'm good with that. I'm confident in my ability to identify those guys that can get sacks or that have the opportunity. So if I miss out on a Myles Garrett or a Nick Bosa, then that's fine. And you know what? I'm going to target someone like DeMarcus Lawrence or even Carl Lawson, who's coming off of injury. If you look at his last healthy season in Cincinnati, he was a pressure monster. He had 20, if I'm not mistaken, he had 26 quarterback hits. So if he converts some of those quarterback hits into sacks, you're looking at a potential double-digit sack guy that you're essentially getting for free, because he was injured last season. And if you're in a league where your league mates are looking for points, and they're not going to find Carl Lawson because he didn't play. So I'm targeting some of those guys. And if I can, Myles Garrett falls to me in the 7th round, maybe I'll probably look at him. But again, I still want a linebacker. I still want to load up on linebackers, because those 3 down full-time linebackers are starting to become a premium, just because there's some more rotations, or defenses are going to more one linebacker sets, or those 2 linebacker sets where the second linebacker is only playing maybe 50 or 60% of the time. So really, after the top third of your linebackers is really where it starts to get ugly. I think there's some really good value in kind of that 2nd or 3rd tier. I break down my defensive line rankings on 4for4 into tiers. That 2nd or 3rd tier, I think, has really the potential to produce some really valuable weekly starters.
So give us a few of those names, those breakout players that you can get a little bit later that you're pretty bullish on.
Love Greg Rousseau out of Buffalo. You get to another one of those young guys, gets to learn from a veteran, gets to learn from Von Miller. He gets to attend Von Miller's pass rush academy on a daily basis. And if you want to know how the pass rush academy can be, Max Crosby attended that same pass rush academy last season, and he virtually broke out. I believe he led the whole NFL with total pressures, with 106 total pressures, monster pressure rate. Almost, I think if he didn't, he was really close to double-digit sacks. So Gregory Rousseau, definitely one of the guys that I'm looking for a breakout season. Could still rotate, but I see him and Von Miller getting the majority of the snaps on the defensive end. I like Kwity Paye in Indianapolis. I was a little bit leery on Michigan guys, but I think he had a really good season. He'll be playing alongside a couple of really good pass rushers himself in Yannick Ngakoue. Got DeForest Buckner on the defensive line. So I definitely like those two as potential breakouts. I mentioned Carl Lawson. I even like Montez Sweat in Washington. I think he's a very underrated guy, and another Josh Sweat in Philadelphia, who I think is a really good value, really good, has a really good pressure rate, really good moves, and that's going to be a really good defensive line in Philadelphia. You got Fletcher Cox, you got Javon Hargrave, you got Hassan Reddick. Jordan Davis is already getting triple teamed as a rookie, so
he's fun to watch. Defensive,
that was a fun game to watch. So that's a very, very formidable defensive line.
Guy's a monster, man. I saw Jordan Davis and I went, ooh, all my Kaiser White shares.
And we go back to Jen Akins. I mean, I don't know who she's going to follow. I mean, if I'm her, I'm following Philadelphia. You got Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis, but you got all these Georgia guys. That was just an insane defense. Just the amount of talent on both sides of that ball. My God.
It's ridiculous. Shout out Jen Akins. We love Jen Akins.
Absolutely.
Mike, I could sit here and yammer on with you for another hour or so.
I got nowhere to be. Pick my brain if there's any questions. I got nowhere to be.
Let me do one more real quick. We talked rookies at the other positions. I didn't talk rookies about defensive ends. Obviously, we have some big premium defensive ends in the draft. Your thoughts on these top-rated defensive ends and where you're targeting them, if at all, in IDP leagues?
Yeah, of course I'm targeting them. It just depends on the price I want to pay for them. Aiden Hutchinson made a pretty good impression in that first game. I think the second play of the game, he had this really good swipe, got a tackle for loss. Kayvon Thibodeau was held in check a little bit, but the guy that I'm watching right now is George Karlaftis in Kansas City. He's making an impression. He had a really solid game preseason. He's getting talked up in camp. Frank Clark is really kind of taking him under his wing. Chris Jones has said this kid is the real deal. And if you looked at his pass rush metrics at Purdue, they were off the charts. I mean, really solid pressure rate, pass rush win rate, beating blockers consistently. So those pass rush metrics and the tape is just converting very, very nicely to the NFL. So George Karlaftis is a guy that I would be targeting if you miss out on Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. Trevon Walker, he's going to be position dependent. He took advantage of a Cleveland offensive line in that first game. Drew a penalty, or he got a penalty, I think, that first game against the Raiders. But yeah, he's probably my fourth or fifth guy I'd be targeting as a rookie. But those three, Hutchinson, Thibodeau, and George Karlaftis, are probably the three I'd be targeting.
Hutch also would be my pick as karaoke partner after seeing his rendition of Billie Jean's.
Oh, that was fantastic. That was really good. When you can get a whole team going, he had everybody going.
It's so much fun. I'm very excited to watch that Detroit front seven. I think it's going to be fun to watch, especially with Malcolm Rodriguez in there too. Who's
that's a guy I think I'm totally going to fall in love with already. I kind of liked him, but I have a feeling I'm going to be going all in on him by the end of Hard Knocks.
I love those guys who just play with their hair on fire. Like I just always enjoy that. That's always fun to see.
Seems like a Dan Campbell guy. Guy.
Right. All right. I'll let you go. Thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat and everybody who watched live. Definitely go follow Mike on Twitter at Mike_Wollert. Check out all his fantastic work at 4for4. He's got IDP rankings up there. He's got that primer I was talking about. He's got breakout candidates. He's got the 3-down linebackers, who's wearing the dot. It's a ton of phenomenal content. Thank you so much for joining me, Mike. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, you pretty much covered it for me, Brandon. I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm always happy to hop on these streams. I love talking IDP. I really want to help people bring it into more of the mainstream. I'm here to help. I'm not going to talk in technical terms. I'm not going to say, hey, yeah, you want these single high 2 safety shells and a zone 1, 2 spot. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to say, here are the guys that are getting the snaps. Here's the guy who you want to play, who are going to get your fantasy points. I break it down, very simple terms, guys that are going to get you fantasy points. So follow me on Twitter at Mike_Wollert. Always available. And I always love talking IDP. So Brandon, thanks for making this happen.
Awesome. Thanks again. Always a pleasure. Listeners, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at 2guysbrandon. Thanks for checking us out and have a good day.